China is on its way to having the strongest economy in the world, and there is nothing that can stand in its way. Or is there? The latest news has revealed that China no longer holds the largest population in the world, and with that, it is no longer the country with the most labor resources. India has overtaken China in terms of population, but what does China have to say about it? If you are the leader of a country tipped to overtake the USA to be the greatest superpower in the world, and you see that your economy will soon start suffering because of the massive dip in your country's population, the first thing you would try to do is hide it. That is what everyone thought when they saw that, according to China's official figures, the number of deaths in all of 2022 was 10.41 million, and that the population of the country was around 1.4 billion. The last 2 years saw about the same number of people die. But when you think about it, the count should have been much higher than in previous years. There was a global pandemic in 2021, and with a population as large as China's, experts started to be suspicious about the numbers. To find out what the real number is, some people calculated that China's death toll in December 2022 alone was almost 4 million. This deduction was made by evaluating how busy the crematoriums in the country had been throughout the month. So if 4 million died in December, the yearly death must be way more than what was claimed in the official report. Japan, the country that supplies almost all of China's practical salt, estimated that China's population has declined to 900 million. This estimate was made by the amount of salt the country consumed, so it is probably not 100% accurate. The data that was 100% correct was leaked by a hacker named China Dan in mid-2022. The hacker sold the data they hacked from Elasticsearch for a huge amount of money. This data held ID cards and figures on the births and deaths, which helped experts calculate exactly how many people there are in China. The grand figure was around 1 billion, which is 400 million less than what China chose to tell the world. This means that India, instead of overtaking the Chinese in terms of population this year, overtook them much earlier. All this means China's population growth is negative and has been declining for a while now. For those of you who don't know what negative population growth is, it's when a population decreases over time rather than increases. While this might sound like a good thing at first, it can have some serious effects on a country's economy. Let's dive in and see what's going on here. First of all, negative population growth often results from declining birth rates. When people have fewer children, there are fewer new workers to join the labor force and contribute to the economy. This can lead to a shrinking workforce, which can hurt the economy in a number of ways. For example, with fewer workers, there are fewer people to produce goods and provide services. This can lead to decreased economic growth as there is less overall output. In addition to this, a shrinking workforce can also put upward pressure on wages. With fewer workers available, employers may have to pay more to attract and retain workers. This can be good for workers, but it also can raise costs for businesses, which can be passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices. Another issue related to negative population growth is an aging population. When people have fewer children, the average age of the population goes up. This can have several effects on the economy. For example, older workers are often seen as more expensive to employ than younger workers, as they often have more experience and higher salaries. In addition, older workers are more likely to retire, which can lead to a decrease in the labor force. This can make it more difficult for businesses to find the workers they need to keep their operations running smoothly. Finally, negative population growth can also lead to a decrease in consumer spending. When people have fewer children, they often have fewer expenses. This can mean that they have more disposable income to save or invest. However, it can also mean that they have less money to spend on goods and services. This can result in decreased demand for many products, which can hurt businesses and the overall economy. In conclusion, negative population growth can have many effects on an economy, from a shrinking workforce and higher wages to an aging population and decreased consumer spending. It's important to understand the implications of this phenomenon. With all the buzz about China standing up to the USA, India can emerge as a third country with a strong economy. If the population dip had any significant effect on China's economy, the race with the US is probably over. And if the population is so important for growth, India should be closer to China than we think. But luckily for China, the population is not everything. India may have had an extra 400 million people, but that doesn't mean all 1.4 billion of them are working for the betterment of the country's economy. Rather, considering how developed and disciplined China is, the working population of the two countries is probably the same. So if anyone thinks India is in the same conversation as China and the USA, they are probably giving India too much credit. No doubt the future looks bright, but as of right now, China definitely has the upper hand. That's good news for China. It can focus all of its attention on competing with the USA. The U.S. has been the largest economy in the world since the mid-1900s, and even though China has grown rapidly over the last few years, there is still a long way to go. From this perspective, China's population is very important, and something needs to be done to fix it. So let's take a look at what can be done. First, China could relax its one-child policy. For many years, China had a strict one-child policy in place, which limited the number of children families could have. This policy was relaxed in recent years, allowing families to have 2 children, but many experts believe that more needs to be done to encourage families to have more children. By allowing families to have more children, China could increase its population growth and address its demographic challenge. Second, China could improve its social safety net. One of the reasons that many families are hesitant to have more children is that they are concerned about the cost of raising a family. By improving its social safety net, China could provide families with the support they need to have more children without having to worry about the financial burden. This could include things like better health care, education, and housing benefits. Third, China could improve work-life balance for families. Many parents in China feel like they have to choose between their careers and their families, which can make it difficult to have children. By improving work-life balance, China could make it easier for families to have children and still pursue their careers. This could include things like flexible working hours, better maternity and paternity leave, and support for families with children. Fourth, China could invest in its younger generation. By investing in the health, education, and well-being of its younger generation, China could encourage more young people to start families of their own. This could include things like improving education and job opportunities, providing affordable health care, and supporting young people as they start their careers and families. Finally, China could work to address cultural attitudes toward having children. In many parts of China, there is a cultural preference for having a son, which can discourage families from having more than one child. By addressing these cultural attitudes and promoting gender equality, China could encourage families to have more children, regardless of gender. As of today, there are many ways that China could increase its population growth, from relaxing its one-child policy to investing in its younger generation. By taking a comprehensive approach that addresses both economic and cultural factors, China could help to ensure a stable and thriving future for its citizens and its economy. If these reforms are applied and the birth rate does indeed rise, the population crisis will be resolved. But that doesn't mean China won't struggle to keep up with the U.S. in the immediate future. Having millions of babies would balance the population growth scales, but those millions of newborns won't be able to contribute to the economy for a couple of decades. So the question is, will China be able to compete with the U.S. with its limited workforce for the next couple of decades? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and watch the next video to know more about the world's latest news.